Is this my good side?
You know, from here it's your good side.
They both are.
Sign him up. Give him a 5-year contract.
Okay.
Talk a little bit about growing up Catholic, maybe Catholic family, those kinds of things.
My mother and father were both Catholics. My 2 older brothers were Catholic. I went to St. Mary Gate of Heaven Elementary School, which was Catholic, run by the Daughters of Wisdom. I went to St. John's Prep in Brooklyn, which is Catholic. I went to St. John's College, which is Catholic. I taught at St. John's University, which is Catholic. I attended Mass for most of my life in Richmond Hill when I was growing up. And then since I've been married and living on Long Island, I've been a parishioner in St. Christopher's Church for the last 50 years, where I am very happy to say I attend Mass every day with my wife. So I think that makes me kind of Catholic.
I would think so.
I think that Peter Steinfeld in his book would like me.
Yeah, how long have you been married?
I've been married twice. My first wife, Peg, died after we were married about 25 years, and we had 4 children. She died, and then I was alone and lonely, and I met a girl named Mary Hoffman, and Mary has been a saint, and we have been married for 42 years. 42 happy, happy years. In fact, this morning, going to services, I said, I have a new name for you. She said, what is it, Bob? I said, Saint. She wouldn't believe it, but I meant it. That's how much I think of her. She's a saint.
Right, that's terrific. Do you have any particular stories about raising the kids Catholic? Any?
That was no problem because they seemed to follow in the footsteps of both of my wives, both of whom went to Catholic elementary school, Catholic high school, Catholic colleges. And so my 4 children went to St. Christopher's Elementary School. Paul went to Chaminade High School, which is Catholic. Barbara and Mary went to Sacred Heart Academy, which is Catholic. Christopher went to St. Agnes High School, which is Catholic. So we are immersed in Catholicity.
Talk about how you first became a lector and how long you've been a lector.
I remember the pastor of St. Christopher's asking me if I would organize a group of lectors. They had never been in our parish or anyplace else, but now there was a new ruling that lay people could become lectors. And since the pastor did not know the routine or anything like that, and because I was a professor of speech, he said, Bob, organize them. So I managed to gather about 20 men that I knew in the parish who were intelligent and Catholic and spoke well. And I called them together for a meeting, explained what lectors were supposed to do, and then organized them for the 5 masses that we had, 3 for here, 3 for there, and 3 for so on. Appointed one to be the captain of that team, and then had material for them that I used in my speech classes that might help them when they start to become active lectors. P.S. No women. At that time, I don't think women were permitted to be up there. So it goes back 500 years. And since then, I ran it for maybe 4 years, turned it over to somebody else. In the meantime, I was giving lecture workshops in Brooklyn and Long Island to other parishes because this was a whole new thing. And for some reason or other, people heard about me and my work, and I also gave a lecture workshop on the island of St. Croix in the Caribbean and in the state of Ohio. I was hired to go out there. So I also introduced my wife into it when ladies were allowed to come up and participate. And they are good. I'm glad the ladies came along. Some of them are far better than the men, really.
Great, thank you. Like John the Baptist, we are called to be messengers. How do you think people can prepare the way for Jesus in how they act? Those kinds of, how could people help evangelize others to live the way Jesus wants us to live?
I think one way is to try to make the well-known saints in the Catholic Church better known so that they can be admired and copied by the laity. For example, people know the name John the Baptist, but I'm not too sure how many know what a great man he was. A cousin of Jesus, in the womb of Elizabeth, the womb of Mary, these two magnificent people must have almost known one another. And if we could get more people who are lay people to recognize that John the Baptist is that far away from the top, I think they would be able to imitate. You know, you set up a figure that people admire, and you pray they will imitate. And if John the Baptist and everything that he was could be used as a model, his humility, his activity, his devotion is something that people should be able to not only acknowledge, but imitate. And I think, having gone to St. John's Prep and St. John's College, I have to become an admirer of St. John. And my brother Jack was St. John, or John, and he was born on June 24th, which is the feast of St. John. So there is an admirable example of something positive for people to imitate. If not that, St. Patrick or St. Leo or St. Robert and so on.
How have you yourself brought the message of Jesus as an announcer, as a professor? John the Baptist was a messenger for Jesus, and in a lot of ways you're a messenger too. How have you done that yourself throughout your life, evangelizing others in your faith?
To answer the question of how I evangelized others or presented my faith to others makes me feel very shy. I never want to become a blockbuster. I never want to parade my Catholicity. I never want to sermonize. I can only be what I am. If what I am, what I have done, what I'm doing is something that people would admire and try to copy, that would have to be almost accidental. Or if not accidental, something that they admire in me might carry over for them, and that would please me without knowing that I have any influence. For example, I work so much in the field of sports. People in sports do not always speak in a circumspect manner. Some of the language is salty. Some of the language is crude. Some of the language is not acceptable. I don't use that language myself in any circumstance, any. People begin to notice that. If I'm having dinner downstairs in the press room and I go to the table where I know people are seated, it's almost as if to say, Bob is coming, let's clean it up. I don't want to put a blanket over these men, but they seem to know what I stand for. And since Mass is held here in the stadium, in a locker room, every Sunday when the Yankees are playing at home, and they know that I leave the table to go into Mass, some of them follow me and go to Mass. I never said, would you like to go to Mass? I never said, you know, you're Catholic, why don't you go to Mass this morning? No way. But I do find more and more people are attending Mass in the locker room in the last 5 years than they did 10 years ago or 20 years ago, including once in a while a Yankee player or two or a visiting team player who will come in. Example is a challenge. And a foolish man would say, I want to set a good example for the people around me. That is, I think, egotistical. You live your life as you see it. And evangelizing does not mean strutting and posing and presenting yourself as a model. Never, never, never. I don't think the saints ever did that. I don't think John the Baptist ever went around and said, look at me. I'm the man who baptized Jesus. I'm the man, I'm not worthy to tie his shoes, but believe me, I'm pretty important because I'm the cousin of Jesus. No way. Quiet, humble. I wish I could do it. I wish I could do it.
That's great. One way that I think that you've been a messenger through the eulogies you write at the stadium, perhaps through your poetry. Perhaps talk about some of the messages or the poems that you've written that maybe has expressed your faith. I know, like, for example, when Mickey Mantle passed, during 9/11, Mother Teresa died, those kinds of things. So just talk about those different types of ways that you, through your writing and your speaking, that you've mentioned your faith or brought your faith into it.
If you want to know how my faith seeps into my work up here at Yankee Stadium, it might be when I'm writing and delivering the eulogies when sports figures have died. I ask them to stand and say a silent prayer for the passing of so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. I try to bring that in. When we have Mass here in the stadium, I am always the lector down there and spreading that word among the people who work here in Yankee Stadium. The sports writers know that one of my hobbies is writing poems, and some of them have been published, and that helps. For example, I did one that was philosophical that went something like this. I took an hour to look at a flower and a day to examine a shell. A week went by while I watched the sky. Oh, God has treated me well. When Roger Maris hit his 61st home run here at Yankee Stadium, I was sitting over there, and Mel Allen, who was the radio announcer, was next to me. And I was so impressed by Roger and his record that I wrote a poem within 5 minutes about that event. And I called it Roger Maris Says His Prayers. They've been pitching me low. They've been pitching me tight. I've grown so nervous, tense, and pallid. But my prayers are full of joy tonight. Thank you, Lord, for Tracy Stallard. Now, for the uninitiated, Tracy Stallard was the pitcher who threw the ball that Roger hit over the fence. So Tracy Stallard, he's on his knees. Roger is thanking the Lord for Tracy Stallard. There's one more I used and was published. You know Zacchaeus, the little guy who climbed a tree. Zacchaeus was a tiny man, unable Christ to see. But he devised a perfect plan. He climbed a sycamore tree. Oh, Jesus, when you pass today, let me catch a glimpse of thee. And if I'm short, provide, I pray, a nearby sycamore tree. So these are some examples of hundreds that I've written, but I don't want to be Shakespeare or Tennyson or even Robert Frost. I'm just a little guy who likes to write poetry.
You kind of answered this with your question about just living your life, but I'd like for you to work it in, phrasing it this way. I've read some articles that people wonder if you use a special voice to announce versus your regular speaking voice. And I remember reading about something you said, that no matter whether you're at home or at church or at the stadium, that you use the same speaking voice.
Am I not doing it now?
That's correct. That's right. So perhaps mention something like tying that into the fact that you did, by living your life, kind of tying it back to what you said before, like by just living your life, you're not a messenger preaches the gospel in whatever they do, not just at church, not just when they're teaching or something like that, but you're doing it through your life. So just we could probably put this piece with the other part later.
Seems to me that even though we are human and we have different modes and moods, there should be a centrality to what we are and what we do. And we should never waver too much away from that line of what we consider the best for us and the people that we influence. I can't change my speech pattern from vulgar to clean and know whether when I should be vulgar or when I should be clean. I can't slur my words just because I'm in a bar room and not up in the pulpit. I think we should be true to ourselves. Shakespeare, be true to yourself. Once in a while, I sometimes engage in conversation with radio and TV announcers. Some of them off camera are salty, but on camera they are perfectly clean. And I often wonder and bring up to them, how do you know when to turn off the bad and turn on the pure professionally? And they said, oh, you get used to it. And I think, isn't that a great gift? That there aren't more people doing radio and television in sports who might revert accidentally to some of their barroom language instead of their professional speech patterns. But they seem to do it. But I don't know how they do that. I'd be afraid.
Have you ever talked about your faith to ball players? I know you're not particularly like a fan hunting down players, but have you ever maybe brought religion, or has it come up that since they know you're Catholic, you said that they come to Mass sometimes, but has it ever come up at all, any players over the years?
Never positively professing my faith to them, nor to anyone else. I have a million friends who are Jewish, a million friends who are Protestant. I don't go and say, why? Now, there's a man who drives me up every day. He's a neighbor, a Jewish neighbor. Drives me up, he gets in for nothing, and he's delighted to do it. He comes to Mass with me every Sunday. He's not going to convert. I never said, Herb, would you like to come to church? Never. But I went. And he would follow me. And he sits in the booth in the auxiliary locker room. And he's friendly with the priest. And the priest is a friend of Herb's. And if somebody in Herb's family is ill, the priest would say, let's offer some prayers for Herb's mother or wife or sister. That's the kind of thing. Isn't that amazing? I never thought of that before. But now that you asked the question, it's the subtle evangelizing rather than the knockout punch. Knockout. I'm afraid if I went up and said to him, why don't you come to Mass with me? He'd say, I don't want to. I didn't. Never said it to him. So it happens.
Just two more questions. And this could be an opinion. If you want to, how do you feel some of the more famous ball players, or ball players in general, have coped with fame in terms of their relationship with family? show, like serving good actions in the community? How have they? Some people don't do that and live in the limelight, and but there are some players that do good work, and not necessarily say that they're Christian or Catholic, but they maybe use their own faith and serve the community and serve others.
I have no personal relationship with the ball players. All I know about them is what I read in Sports Illustrated or the newspapers and so on. But I think the way they are demonstrating their Christianity in one form or another is through the many contributions they make to charity. Many of them have all kinds of little things they do. I remember Dave Winfield had a foundation. I think Derek Jeter has a foundation. I think Joe Torre is very philanthropic in many, many ways. Those who are making millions and millions and millions as players, I do think are making constant and sizable contributions to charity. And that's, you give. If they can't give their time, they can give their money, and they do. And I think I've seen them signing autographs forever. That too is a kind of evangelization, a model.
This is more like a humorous question, but I've read Reggie Jackson, Billy Crystal have called you the voice of God. How does that make you feel?
If Reggie Jackson, who's a friend, and Billy Crystal, who's a friend, have referred to my style as the voice of God, I don't think it's a mortal sin. I just think that it's wrong. There is no voice of God. The only voice of God that I thought I ever heard was Bishop Sheen, who is my model from way back, way back. But I do the best I can, and before every game and the first pitch and the first announcement, I pray. I really pray not to be the voice of God, but to do a professional job for what they have hired me to do. And in my 54 years here and 39 working with George Steinbrenner, he has never had one word with me of complaint. So if I can please him, I guess I can please God. Not that he's God, but he's, not too far away. So I like George, and I think George likes me. But I'm sure if I start to goof off, he would be the first one to come and say, Bob, get serious. And I am serious when I do my work. But here, with you people, I'm very happy and relaxed and happy to share these few minutes with you. Painless.
See?
That was wonderful.
Painless.
Great stuff. And you're right.
Okay, I'm rolling.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Yankee Stadium.